Listener discretion is advised.
I really need to have a word with our fan picker because you know that I hate cold cases. Like my ADHD hyperfixation plus my anxiety disorder can't handle unanswered questions in general.
Yeah, and you're a Libra.
It's a lot.
You hate it.
So I hate it. This week, I am covering the mystery of the Las Cruces bowling alley massacre.
Oh, great.
Oh, it's so fucking sad.
Sounds super fun.
Great.
That sounds
I love anything called a
lovely.
massacre. It's just casual Monday. Here we go.
Especially something as festive as La Cruces bowling alley.
Las Cruces. Yeah. Yeah.
It sounded,
Terrible.
It sounded really fun and like
It
does
could
sound
be-
kind of fun. Massacre.
Las Cruces bowling alley massacre.
It was a hard turn.
Well, like Kenya likes to say, get your laughs out now.
Oh.
So this is truly a mystery and one that was featured on our beloved Unsolved Mysteries.
Yes.
But let's start by going back in time to February 10th, 1990 in Las Cruces, New Mexico. That morning, the morning of the 10th, the manager of Las Cruces Bowl, 34-year-old Stephanie Senek, was
Unrelated to the bowling alley.
unrelated. Well, actually, she is related to the bowling
It's actually
alley.
a ceramics studio, but it's fine.
She is related to
She's
the bowling alley,
related.
though.
I was joking.
I know. It's just funny because she is, though. So she was in her office going about her usual morning opening duties. This was a family business, so her dad owned the bowling alley and she worked there. And the business, the bowling alley offered like a little daycare for parents while they bowled, and employees who worked there could also use this like daycare service just at work when they couldn't get a sitter at home.
Cool.
Yeah. And the daycare, I'm using quotes for our patrons can see it, but non-patrons, you just have to imagine the quotes or join Patreon at $1 or more. I imagine it wasn't like a licensed daycare because Stephanie's daughter, who's 12, would like come and babysit all day.
Licensed
Daycare. But it's like my 12-year-old daughter and some of the staff are babysitting while you bowl for a couple hours.
It's babysitting
I think it's great.
on premises.
On premises, you're 20 feet away drinking a pitcher of beer.
You wouldn't want this to be your child's sole access to social and emotional learning.
Probably. It was the 90s. A lot of indoor smoking on those lanes.
Oh, yeah. I can smell it.
Smell it from here. So Stephanie's 12-year-old daughter, Melissa, would come in and work, and Melissa was there that day to cover childcare with her friend and classmate, 13-year-old Amy Hauser.
Yep.
Another employee, a cook named Ida Holguin, was also doing her opening routine when a man came in through the back kitchen door, which she had left unlocked because she was working in the kitchen and like preparing to receive food deliveries. It's Monday morning. She's coming in and out, whatever.
Yeah.
They held her, or this gunman held her at gunpoint and demanded she take him to Stephanie's office, like the manager's office.
Jesus.
When they entered the office, Stephanie, her daughter Melissa, and Melissa's friend Amy were there held at gunpoint by another intruder. So there are two people.
Shit.
Despite what I wrote in my notes, that.
Yeah.
There are two of them.
Okay.
This seemingly began as a routine holdup. The gunman instructed Ida, Melissa, and Amy to lay down on the floor and for Stephanie to open the safe. They took about $5,000 from the safe, but left an undisclosed amount of cash behind. I think it was undisclosed. My theory is that the police didn't want to release that little bit of information in case they caught somebody.
Right.
And then that could be like,
A detail that they can
like cross-checked.
Yeah.
Then another bowling alley employee arrived for work, a pin mechanic named Steve Tarrin. The 26-year-old had brought his children to work with him that day for Melissa and Amy to babysit. His 2-year-old named Valerie and his 6-year-old named Paula. When he didn't see anyone at the daycare center, which was unusual considering the alley was about to open, he wandered back to Stephanie's office to see what was going on.
I just don't think that there's maybe anything more 90s than that lax childcare scenario at a bowling alley.
I love it. It's like, this is how community living should be. Come bowl, drop off the kids.
It's so 90s.
It takes a village. It takes a village.
The amount, I mean, I haven't
and also like a
bowling alley
like a hippie
trusting.
We spent a lot of time at the bowling alley together growing up. And
right.
the laundromat next door.
There's like a hippie trusting culture there too.
The whole thing about it is it could only
90s.
be in 90. Yes.
Yeah. And go ahead. 90s. Here's $20. Go walk to the dollar store and pick out some candies. It's just 6 miles down the road. Have a nice time.
God, exactly.
Yeah.
You can walk.
Cars.
We grew up with that trusting.
Oh, absolutely. We absolutely grew up with that.
Yeah. We totally
try to be back by dark.
Save 50 cents for the payphone to call me for a ride home.
Yeah.
You call collect.
Like,
or you call
I'm
ready to be picked up from the bowling alley. Would you like to accept?
No.
The charges? No.
Mom, come get me.
Mom, I'm in the bowling alley, run me up. Oh my God, you guys, why are none of this is good. None of this is funny.
It has changed so much.
I know. Okay.
I keep thinking those AOL CDs.
I know. All right, well.
I know we've talked about them, but like, oh my God.
Again, get those laughs out. So Steven, he and his kids, his tiny kids, go to the office to see what's going on. Why is nobody working? And his arrival startled, apparently, the gunman, who then opened fire on all 7 people in the room.
Oh, no.
Including a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
Jesus Christ.
There were only 3 adults who weren't the gunman in that room. Everyone else was a child.
Dear God.
Yeah, it's fucked. They then set fire to Stephanie's office and fled. 13-year-old Amy.
For $5,000.
We'll get to it, but yes.
Okay.
13-year-old Amy, 6-year-old Paula, and 26-year-old Steven died at the scene from their gunshot wounds. 2-year-old Valerie died later at the hospital. Stephanie's daughter, Melissa, who, remember, only 12 years old, survived being shot 5 times, including once in the head.
What the fuck?
And crawled to the phone and called 911, saving the lives of her mother, Stephanie, and the cook, Ida. And her 911 call is absolutely, and herself, yep, absolutely heartbreaking. I didn't listen to it. I read a little bit of the transcript, but I hate 911 calls. They're so horrifying.
No, I can't do it.
But on the phone, she said, "Please hurry. It hurts. I'm the only one conscious. I'm holding my mommy." This poor girl.
Oh my God, she's fucking fat. She's what, 12?
She's 12.
And she's been shot 5 times.
And she's just like, please get here. Tragically, Stephanie, the mom, sustained long-term injuries that I'm not really certain the details of, but likely some extensive trauma and likely brain trauma. And she passed away 9 years after this attack as a result of her injuries.
Oh,
so she survived for 9 years and then died from complications.
So 2 people randomly went into a fucking bowling alley, got startled while stealing $5,000, and shot a bunch of children and adults.
That is one theory. It's been 31 years and this case is still unsolved, but there are some things that we do know. The survivors were able to give descriptions of the attackers. One young, possibly Mexican-American male, 29 or 30 years old, about 5 feet, 50 feet and 10 inches tall, weighing about 170 pounds.
I've seen him.
Pretty noticeable.
His name is Paul Bunyan. He lives in Bemidji, Minnesota.
The second was a young blue ox. Okay, no, but anyway. With dark wavy hair, light-colored eyes, and no accent when he spoke. The other suspect was an an older, possibly Mexican-American man described as 45 or 50 years old, 5 feet 7 inches tall, weighing about 140 pounds, with thinning salt and pepper hair, a dark complexion, and a slight accent indicating Spanish as his primary language.
Okay.
Sketches of the two men were rendered in both 1990 and again in 2005 to show age progression. I believe I put the sketches on the drive. They were also said to be driving a tan or green van or utility vehicle, though it was never found. Another witness who was in the vicinity that day came forward. They were across the street on a ladder painting a building at the time, and he told police that he saw two men crossing Amador Avenue and running south. Detectives were able to lift some fingerprints from the bowling alley, but no DNA was recovered at the scene.
And imagine how many fucking handprints are at
everywhere.
A fucking bowling alley.
I mean, fortunately, it's very clear that the majority of the crime took place in the office. And so at least for
they're not testing
can,
every ball.
Exactly. So they can kind of focus on that area to get as much evidence as possible, but that was very fucking little. The gun used to shoot the victims was a .22 caliber pistol, and it too was never recovered. So like I said, 31 years later, this case is still unsolved despite a huge push with a feature on Unsolved Mysteries, as well as Ida, the cook, appearing on the TV show I Survived.
Oh, it's so good.
Fucking amazing.
Good show.
So
Great
good. I don't think they
show.
make it anymore, but I think you can get it on Amazon and Hulu and stuff.
On my
It's still
favorite
out
murder,
there.
Karen covers a lot of her cases are just I saw this episode
On
of I Survived.
I binged it so hard when it first came out.
It's a
just,
fucking great show.
It's a
It's
great
just
show.
unbelievable, and it's so well done. Where it's just an interview with the survivor in a dark room, and then the reenactments are very brief and just little clips. It's not like Forensic Files. It's
but you don't even,
what
they don't
Forensic
even need
Files
to
thought it
have
was gonna
they don't even need to have that many reenactments.
Right.
No, 'cause the interviews are
story
so
is harrowing
compelling.
in itself.
Oh my
It's
god.
awful.
Anyway, these stories of survival are just
Amazing.
unbelievable. So there's still a $30,000 reward in place for any information leading to an arrest in this case, and some theories remain plausible. And I went down a Reddit rabbit hole to get some
I
insights.
expected
God.
nothing
Here we
else,
go.
nothing
Yep.
less.
So one user, Broke Sonic, writes, quote, rumor is the owner, so Stephanie's dad, maybe was involved in drugs, and drug cartel hitmen went to get revenge for a debt.
I mean, that's the rumor in any kind of shoot 'em up.
I know.
That's
It
I'm
is,
not,
but
I'm not critiquing you. I'm
ruling
just
it
saying.
out. I'm not ruling it out. We'll get to it.
Possible. It's just a common theory. Don't act
But-
Reddit.
Sure.
Reddit Brock Sonic. Don't act like you're coming up with something.
Well,
earth-shattering here.
they're about to explain why they think this.
Okay,
You cut
well,
me off
I'm
in line
jumping the
number
gun.
one. The theory makes some sense since the Mexico border is not too far. Law enforcement could not find any leads. And Sweater Contact responded with, quote, with the killers not being found, that theory does make sense, especially considering they showed no mercy to the children involved. However, I'm surprised that they didn't ensure the death of all of the victims prior to leaving if they were professionals, which I
Yeah.
completely agree with.
No double tap.
Seems like a serious oversight if this was a drug-related or otherwise professional killing, and the killers didn't wear masks or gloves, which doesn't seem very professional to me. However, the same month in Las Cruces, apparently someone was killed at a gas station after being tied up and shot execution style, and only $500 appeared to be taken from the scene. So it's like there are these two weird murders with
Tying up is
all
very
this.
interesting.
It is, but I don't know. It's probably not related, but it's just one theory. The killer in this case was also never caught and this additional situation seemed to support the idea that area locals might be involved in the drug trade and were being targeted. Another user chimed in saying, quote, New Mexico native here. I am not surprised that this is unsolved. New Mexico law enforcement is shockingly incompetent, corrupt, and unmotivated, especially if the victims don't rate as important or the perpetrators are well connected or from the right families. Even today, many cases of child murders go unsolved or unprosecuted. Unfortunately, that problem does exist all over the place.
Right.
Wow.
The documentary A Nightmare in Las Cruces, which was made 20 years after the attack, alleges that the owner of the bowling alley was indeed involved with drugs and deep in debt.
Okay.
Detectives remarked at how uncooperative he was being throughout the investigation, and he quickly pushed to reopen the bowling alley barely 2 weeks after the attack, which could have happened for a number of reasons. He may have been laundering money or trying to move money or just pay back this debt, or he could have been like an operation spot. Drop off and pick up
I could see a bowling
location.
alley being a very classic 90s
Oh, yeah.
money
For
laundering.
sure.
And I mean, it's New Mexico.
There's no way a bowling alley can afford to exist if it's not a money laundering.
I mean, I don't know. It's New Mexico, and I'm a big
In a
Breaking
small
Bad
town.
fan. So
Yeah. In a small
that's where
town,
my head
absolutely,
goes,
yes.
but who knows? So yeah, some believe these two men were sent to get the debt repaid and send a message, but then were potentially harbored in New Mexico for a day or two after the killings and then had assistance fleeing to Mexico, where they have either remained unfound or were executed by their own bosses for their sloppy work. People are very attached to this theory because they didn't take all of the money out of the safe and they killed all of these people. So like they think they might have been sending a message.
Instead of trying to get money.
Yeah, and that these guys clearly didn't hesitate to kill children, like for barely $5,000. It's like, why? Like, it's not fucking worth it.
Unless somebody really was startled and
Right.
had an automatic and just like,
And I mean, it's a 22 caliber. I don't know if it was a semi-automatic. I don't remember, but like, that's the thing that I think happened. I think if Steven, the pin mechanic, walked in and derailed their robbery, like if that accounts for the money that was left behind and their like irrational response,
right.
and like lack of a better term, overkill to being discovered by someone that they didn't
Overkill
suspect.
and yet also not enough kill in that they didn't actually check to make sure that their victims were dead and couldn't identify them.
And that's where I like
kill.
Yeah, I keep getting stuck on Steven walking in on them. Like a theory that makes sense to me also that I read is that Steven may have recognized these individuals and they knew him as well, also leading them to like panic and open fire, sloppily try to cover their tracks as they lit the office on fire, but like
something went wrong. Something went sideways.
Yeah, they weren't expecting to be caught and recognized, and they freaked out and got the fuck out of there and have just gotten lucky.
And another one, the last one I'll consider because it also kind of fits, is a theory that they had been misled about the amount of money that was there when they got tipped off to this hit.
I'm sure.
And their response was out of like anger and frustration.
Yeah.
Because that does happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant, okay, you're talking about that relating to the hitman theory.
I meant like
just the payoff.
The payoff for like they got a tip that like, oh, this bowling alley has a safe and it has like, $25,000 in it. And then they get there and it's $5,000 and they're like, what the fuck? And they're pissed and go guns blazing.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think that could relate to that theory. I think it very similar, but slightly different. It could relate to some newbie, dummy robbers, hearing a rumor that, there's a lot of cash at the bowling alley.
Right.
So they go try to rob it. They get startled. They freak out. They're unprofessional, whatever. And side note, they shouldn't have even tried to rob it in the first place because it only had $5,000.
Yeah, I feel like they also seem to be, and obviously we can't confirm this, but from eyewitness accounts and the older, younger kind of like comparison, I think that they might be like a father-son.
Yeah, they kind of look related.
Duo. And maybe, I don't know, like usually shit like this happens out of desperation in one way or another. Maybe they were involved with the cartel and had to go carry out this act. Maybe they were themselves deep in debt for whatever reason and had their whole livelihood held on this possible robbery, and then there's barely enough in the safe for them
to
get away from their problem.
It could be anything. It could be nothing drugs related. Yeah.
It's just so sad that like DNA was not recovered from the scene. None of the fingerprints match. And just all of these people died. And
Yeah.
then the 3 survivors, well, now 2 survivors, have to live with this trauma forever. And there's no closure because these guys are just gone.
Yep.
No trace, like disappeared. It's wild. But anyway, that is my case. Well, I sure hope you liked that clip. If you did like that clip, make sure you are subscribing to our YouTube channel, leaving us a nice review, and joining us on Patreon for even more video content, audio content, salacious content all around. Come join us. Treat yourself.